Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to take a look at another 5 pens from my collection. That's these 5. These pens all under 10 Aussie dollars. So that's what, about $7 US. So very inexpensive pens. We're going to take a look at them, compare them quickly against each other, and I'll give you my thoughts as we're going along. So join me now down on the table. We'll jump on in and take a look at the pens. Welcome down to the table. So pens under 10 Aussie dollars. Going to be interesting, this one. This paper, this is AUD paper, made in India. There's a slight creaminess to it. It's also got a little bit of texture. I really like this paper. It's really nice to write on. So our first pen. This comes from China. Most of today's pens are from China. The last one, that's from Japan. But this first one, this is the Jinhao, and it's the 992. This one is in transparent green. There's a number of colours. They're all transparent. The nib, it's a fine nib. It's one of the downsides I find with a lot of the Chinese pens. The nib choice just isn't there. But it's nice. It's all right, isn't it? I love the colour. As you can see, it's a cartridge converter. There we go. We've actually got plastic here rather than metal, so it may be possible to eyedropper it. I haven't tried, so I don't know how possible it is. We've got a little bit of an O-ring down at the bottom as well, which gives you a bit of a soft landing. In the hand, it's not too bad unposted. I do prefer to use this pen posted. I find that little bit extra length does make quite a bit of a difference. And then we've got a small nib. There's that Jinhao nib. So we've got here a Jinhao 992. And it's got a fine nib. The price for this pen, I'm going to give you the cents on this one as well. It's $2.22. Dirt cheap, isn't it? The ink is by Diamine. And it's Velvet Emerald. Nice green ink there. Let's do our Wasky Squirrel grid. So we're going up and down. Side to side. So obviously with it being a fine nib, it does take its time. Then we'll do our grids and diagonal. Drying times, there's immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 30 seconds, that one's dry, so fairly fast drying combo. I do like these Jinhao 992s. Say at the price, they're so cheap, even if you only use them once or twice, they're still worth the money. So anyway, the Jinhao 992. Up next, staying in China, this is a Baoer, and this is the Baoer Model 79. Love the looks of this. So we've got mainly silver, then we've got these gorgeous black stripes here. I don't know how well that comes over on the camera. So that's striped, it's not all black. Just try tipping it in different directions just to try and show you. It's very hard to catch on the camera because my lights are so bright. It's a longer pen. I'm just going to fetch in that 992. You can see that a little bit longer. The cap, it just pulls off. We unscrew. Here we've got the converter. Plastic fittings, although I think the body is all metal. Certainly this pen has got a fair bit of weight compared to that 992. Here we've got a plastic section. My fingers fit quite nicely in there. Again, it's another fairly small nib. Still an enjoyable pen to use. It will post, but with this one, I find it's more than usable unposted. So we've got here a Baoer. Just make sure I spell this right. And it's the Model 79. The nib on here is a medium, which is unusual. I do struggle finding medium nibs from China. Price, $5 Aussie. The ink is by Diamine, and it's Raspberry Rose. Let's do that wasty swirl grid. So, up and down, side to side. As you can see, this is filling up this grid a lot quicker than that Jinhao 992 was. There's our downs, and our crosses, and then diagonals. Drying times, there's immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. After a minute, we're still smudging there. I'm not going to do a 2-minute test. This is a pen. I've got to be honest, I don't use it often enough. It's really nice. Quite enjoyed writing with that. Enjoyable pen. And for $5, again, bit of a bargain, really. So that was the Baoer 79. Just move the page up ever so slightly. There we go. And let's look at the next pen. So my next pen. This is by Fuliwen, and it's a 2062. I believe it's an older style Fuliwen pen. Very simple looking, isn't it? I love the black of this. It's got like a matte finish to it. Then we've just got these hints on this silver trim. The cap twists off. Very, very small section on here. And then body itself also twists off to reveal the converter. I've just, before we started recording this, primed the feed. One of the issues I've got with this pen, we may see it, the nib dries out very, very quickly, and I end up either having to shake it, which sometimes, by going like this, gets it going. This time I had to prime the feed. It posts by screwing on the end here. You need to do that. It's a small pen otherwise. Now, I don't know if it's just the way I started, but with it posted, that clip is at the back. So it's not very comfortable. And as I say, we've got this teeny tiny little section. Do you get the idea that it's small? Because I hold my pens down near the bottom, I'm finding my fingers are sitting on these threads, and they do feel a bit sharp to my hand. I think if you hold your pen further up, you'll be holding it on the body, so that won't be so much of an issue. So I'm going to try holding it further up. No, I'm not. So we've got here a Fuliwen. Oh, it is writing, which is good. And it's the 2062. And on here we've got a fine nib. The price for this pen, $6 Aussie. The ink by Diamine, and it's Pick Me Up. I deliberately chose this ink because it is a fairly wet ink. It's a scented ink. It's also a sheening ink. It has a nice green sheen to it. Hopefully we might see a bit of that. But because it's wet, I knew I had problems with this, with the flow. So I thought, yep, let's try something like that. So let's do our wasty spiral grid. So we go up and down, side to side. Our grid, and then diagonals. Drying times, there's immediate, 10 seconds. 30 seconds. Here you can see what I mean by how small it is unposted. One minute. After 1 minute, tiniest bit of a smudge there. So again, it's a wettish combo. I like the size of this pen. It's handy as a pocket pen. I like the way it writes when it writes. Only problem with it is, I say, it's not consistent. It dries out so quickly. So why I'm saying that is last night, about 8 p.m, is when I tested all these pens and they all wrote. I had to get this started again by shaking it, but eventually it did start writing this morning. So I started recording about 9 a.m. and just before I recorded, I tested it and it wouldn't start. I had to prime the feed. So just be aware, and that's one of the downsides with going for these cheaper pens. And to be honest, it's part of the reason I've included this as part of that story. Just beware, you get what you pay for. So let's move that paper up again. There we go, let's go like that, then we can get the last 2 pens on. The next pen comes from China. This is the PenBBS 494. This one, yes, it's a demonstrator. It's also a piston filler there. You can see the piston. Here we've got that piston mechanism. It feels flimsy. It feels flimsier than that Jinhao 992. And see here in the cap, we've got some ink. So we've got a little bit of ink leakage. Now that could be where I'm taking the nib in and out. Potentially that's to do with maybe air pressure or something. But yeah, getting a little bit of ink drops in there. Cap unscrews, section transparent, very thin looking. Nice length though. In the hand, I personally find this is really nice unposted. You can post it, it posts very well. Doesn't feel back heavy, doesn't feel too long, but I usually use my pens unposted, and that's how I like to use this one. So here is a PenBBS 494 with a fine nib. Price for this pen, $8 Aussie. For a piston filler, you can't go wrong, can you? The ink is by Diamine and it's Ash. This is a nice grey ink. What I tend to see when I'm writing with it, it goes down with a nice green colour, or green tinge should I say, but as it dries as a nice grey. Let's do our grid. So up and down, side to side, checks or grid, and then diagonals. Drying times, immediate, try and get a clean finger. Looks fairly dry, doesn't it? 10 seconds. Virtually dry there. I'm going to do 30 seconds, but I expect it will be dry then. There we are, as we expected, that's dry at 30 seconds. Very dry combo. I've used this pen quite a bit. It's quite a nice pen to use. It's very light, as I say, it does feel a bit flimsy. And this piston mechanism, it's got a bit of play in it as well. So I have to be careful that when I start twiddling that, I don't go too far and push ink out. So that's that PenBBS 494. The last pen, this one's from Japan, and this is the Platinum Preppy. Now this is the clear version. There's loads of different finishes on this. There's also the Preppy Wow series, which has got some nice prints on it. Now I'm agitating this for a reason. The ink in here is a shimmer ink. So I want to make sure I get plenty of that shimmer into suspension. This pen does come with a cartridge. If you want a converter, you have to pay for that separately. The converter actually costs more than the pen. What I've done now is I've risked it and I've eyedroppered it. I put some silicone grease around the threads between the barrel and the section, and then using a blunt nose syringe I fill up the body, the barrel here, and it works so well. You can see that sloshing around, so a bit like a demonstrator piston or vacuum filler. I love seeing ink sloshing around. The cap pulls off, reveals a wide section and a transparent section. Very comfortable to use, very, very nice. Unposted, real nice fit in the hand. Also posts very well. The cap is so light you hardly notice it. But again, I like to use pens unposted, so this one is used unposted. Got here a steel nib by Platinum. Very similar in shape to a Lamy Safari style nib. I've not tried swapping them. I don't intend to do that. This one is a 0.5 nib, which equates to a Japanese fine. I always thought it was a Japanese medium, but someone told me the other week it was a Japanese fine. So let's see how this one goes. So we've got here a platinum. Oh, this is nice and smooth. Preppy. With a 0.5 nib. Price for this pen, 9 Aussie dollars. The ink is by Diamine. And it's Subzero. I say this is a shimmer ink. Let's do our grid. So we go up and down, side to side. We'll do our diagonals first, and then our grid. I'm also going to do here just a bit of a thicker scribble. I want to see if we can get some of that shimmer to come out. So very nice. I say writes very smoothly, the smoothest nib of the lot we've looked at. And it's $9 for a platinum pen. What I'm going to do now is move the paper. When we come back, we'll write a sentence with each of the pens. And what I'll do whilst I'm writing each sentence, I'll move the mic down to the page so you can hopefully hear the pen writing. Just dropping in to interrupt your regular programming. Would you like to help support the channel? If so, please consider joining as a member. As a member, you'll get early access to my videos. I normally upload them a couple of days before they go out, and as soon as they're uploaded, they'll be released to members. There'll also be a shout out at the end of the videos, and then as we get the members coming in, we'll actually chat among ourselves and work out what other perks, what other things you'd like me to add in. You know, would you like maybe a monthly live chat just for members? All down to us. So please, if you can, consider joining the channel. A link will be in the description down below. So first up, we've got that Jinhao 992. That nib, it feels stiff, not unpleasantly stiff. We've got beautiful audible feedback. Hopefully that came over on the camera. It doesn't scratch on the paper, it doesn't catch on the paper. Remember, this paper's got a bit of texture to it. Puts down a nice line. It's consistent. I can pick this up and write with it even when I've left it for a few weeks. So that's a Jinhao 992. Next up, we've got that Baoer 79. Another nice writer, another consistent writer. This time the nib didn't feel as stiff. It certainly wasn't soft, but it didn't feel as stiff. It's a little bit quieter when I'm writing, more like a whisper than I was getting with that Jinhao 992. Pleasant writer. So that's the Baoer 79. Up next, let's hope it writes. We've got the Fuliwen 2062. Let me just pop there. Move that mic. I love the way this writes. When it writes, it's beautiful, really is. As I said earlier, the issue is it doesn't always write it. We have a lot of hard starts, but when it's going, it's gorgeous. I really like using this pen. It's very nice. But I say the inconsistency is why I don't bother with it. Next up, we've got that PenBBS 494. Again, nice audible feedback. All of the pens so far don't get very much tactileness to it. The nibs just feel a little bit on the stiff side. So that was a PenBBS 494. Lastly, we've got the Platinum Preppy. Another nice writing pen. This one, it's more getting towards that type of platinum feedback that I like, where it feels a little bit like writing with a pencil. It was the quietest of the lot in terms of the audibleness of it. Again, it sounded a little bit like you're writing with a pencil. This one was the quietest of the 5. Very nice though, still a pleasant pen to write with. Just going to lift this up. Let's go up here. Not really seeing a lot of shimmer. I'm seeing some coming through in my grid. There should be a nice silver shimmer coming through. So it's not very present there, but it's a fine nib, so I didn't really expect that. Let's swap on over and take one final look at the pens. So the 5 pens we've looked at today, we've got the Jinhao 992. The Baoer 79, the Fuliwen 2062, the PenBBS 494, and the Platinum Preppy. All 5 pens, they're not bad. The 2062, the Fuliwen, that does show us the dangers with buying cheaper pens. You know, you can't exactly guarantee if they're going to work or not. And I've had a couple of pens where they just didn't write. When I've only paid $2 or $3, I don't care, I just chuck them out. I've had another couple of pens where I've been able to use it to play around with the nibs, and eventually I do get them writing, but still they're not consistent. If I had to pick one of these pens as my favourite, I've got to be honest, I'm going to go for the Jinhao 992. Very close behind it though is that Platinum Preppy. I just think for the cost, you can't go wrong with this pen. I've got a load of them because, you know, if one breaks, you haven't really lost anything at $2. And I've had this pen about 2 years, and I would say this particular one's been inked up 5 or 6 times in that 2 years. Had no issues with it, and it still writes. It writes first time. Even when I've left it for weeks, I pick it up and it just writes. So these are some of my pens that are under 10 Australian dollars. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What do you think of these pens? What pens have you got that are under 10 Aussie dollars? Do you find that they work fine? Do they let you get ideas out of your head and onto paper in a way that you enjoy? To me, that's the key thing. If a pen does that, then it's fine. Please drop your comments down below. Let's kickstart the conversation. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.